today I would like to thank you all for attending this session on a Saturday daytime, and also I'd like to thank our sponsors and the group of volunteers and the organizers to make this wonderful event happen and bringing us all together to make sure that we kind of get our knowledge shared and gathered all together. And also the interesting thing about this is we have already posted things around quiz, so feel free to sign it up and try to stay till the end so that you don't miss out the prizes. And Yeah, with that said, yep, I'd say myself, Samik, and then I work as a cloud security architect. And then you can reach out to me over this QR code or in the Linktree link that has all the description. And today we're going to talk about, we are better together when we blend in Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, Cloud Apps, and Sentinel, right? And how do we proceed about the session is we're going to have a very simple three things to talk about, right? One is introduction, wherein we understand and the various product Microsoft has and why impact they're there and what kind of coverage they do. Then we try to do a deep dive exactly, looking into Azure portal, or I would say security portal to be precise, that how exactly they look like and what are the options they available and how to blend them together. And then obviously we try to look at when we connect everything to Microsoft Sentinel, right? How exactly the connection works and what are the advanced capabilities we can leverage, right? And then obviously maybe at the end, but also throughout the session, feel free to have your questions. So that said, I will definitely start with, Microsoft Defender in mind. So fundamentally, if you talk about Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, that's a Microsoft Enterprise solution for all our standard endpoint, and that endpoint meaning Windows machine, Windows 10, 11, 8, and Windows Server and things like that. And why it is required? It is required for our endpoint protection, because right now, if you look at the threat landscape, we we are always trying to work as a hybrid worker, right? Sometime we're in the office, sometime we're working from home, but we mostly are tied to a physical machine to do our work. To Microsoft make sure that with Defender for Endpoint, you have your endpoint secured from different attack surfaces. You always get a real-time protection, and then also it can be responsed, and the portal itself gives you an option for automated investigation and remediation. And also Microsoft has an offering called Threat Expert, wherein if you face an issue, you can reach out on the Threat Expert space and get the resolution done over there, right? Little bit more detail around that, what exactly Defender for Endpoint is and what you can do. To give you an example, right? So as you see, PDF is a very I'd say it's a good and bad software at the same time, because we use PDF a lot, so that's something you cannot get rid of. But at the same time, there are like multiple installers or multiple exes wherein PDF can be executed from, right? And that gives the attacker a chance to create or mimic that particular Defender for Endpoint scenario, and create a PDF tool and then ingest into a machine, right? So with Defender for attack surface reduction rule, what we could do is we can control that what are the EXEs or what are the softwares compatible to read our PDF should be available within the org. Anytime we go beyond that, Defender just blocks it and doesn't let us do that. Same thing goes for a lot of temporary files or startup files and things like that, right? So with that said, that's what the attack surface introduction does. And this also gets complemented with antivirus policies. So for example, right, we always, in whichever organization we work for, what do you do is there are some proprietary softwares and tools that organization have. We might need to use them, right? And they might be like having their legacy system, having some updated system. So that's kind of a mix and match, right? Then what we could also do in Defender, we know that those sources are really good. There's nothing wrong about the sources. We can definitely exclude that in the antivirus policies to make sure that those files never get scanned, right? Things like that. So that's what our endpoint protection does. And obviously you can respond the quarantine, the threat and things like that. Also, as I say, the automated investigation can be kicked off for there, right? Now, look at the next one. There is another product also we call Defender for Cloud Apps. So what Defender for Cloud App does, so by the name of it, right, we have seen Defender for Endpoint. Endpoint is to protect our, the endpoint systems, which is mostly our end user system, maybe Windows 10, 11 these days. And then we do access our mailboxes a lot. We do access our Azure environment if we have a lot. We basically access SharePoint, Teams, and everything, right? So MCAS, earlier known as Microsoft Cloud App Security, now known as Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps, right, acts as a proxy and sits behind your application, as a proxy. So any traffic, if you are aware about your on-premises proxy, right? So let's say you try to browse any URL, that always goes to proxy, and proxy makes sure that the traffic is good. Same thing happens. MCAS kind of sits as a proxy there, and then let's say you want to access SharePoint, right? So what MCAS does, MCAS puts a front layer, right? That before you get into SharePoint, you have to actually, go through all these proxy walls, and we can put policies. Let's say, for example, right, to give you a very basic example of a policy, what we can do it in cloud apps. So in cloud apps, let's say we want the people who are actually having a machine which is registered in our endpoint or Azure AD, right, they should only be able to access SharePoint, right? Or maybe they should be also only able to access mails, right? So kind of those policies can be built, and the reason we can build them, because MCAS sits as a proxy in front of that, and it controls all the traffic. And not only it controls that, we really get the verbose telemetry of the entire thing over here. What should pass through, what shouldn't pass through. I'm going to demo you in the portal how the portal looks like. Right now there's an integrated portal on these two things, and as you can see, and it is not limited to Microsoft apps, right? For example, Team, SharePoint. You can also use apps like Salesforce. That's a lot of organization uses. You can use Dropbox. A lot of orgs use that as a file share, and like that you can also have your own SaaS apps registered to Microsoft Defender for Cloud App to control that, and proxy that through, and govern that, all these things, right? And it seamlessly works also with Defender. Let's say you have, and there's also one integration point wherein you can control, let's say a user should only be able to access our SharePoint site from our registered device. And can we block certain things if someone is downloading files 50 times a day or some things like that? Just block the user or block the access of that user for that particular app and things like that. So those things also can be combined, and the threads can be combined together. And Defender also have some sort of machine learning model building in, which it does which it what it does is it basically creates a multi-stage detection. Let's say you have some alert in a cloud app, right? So you see an alert and 50 file downloads alert from MCAS, right? And you can also see a ransomware attack, or basically Defender sees a ransomware attack in your endpoint, right? Or try to mitigate it, though they are like false apart being an alert. But Defender intelligently understand that this might be a common attack of a common kill chain that can create a high fidelity alert. That's something already we built in Defender. So number one, we really get greatly benefited whenever we use Cloud Apps plus Defender. Now coming to the next slide, what we talk about better together. Is there any question? Right. Thank you. So and if you have any question, as I say, feel free to post in the chat. Then the next piece is, I would say, what we could do is not only the alert. Defender anyway does its job by putting ASR rules, doing policies into MCAS, and it basically puts up everything into a controlled environment. But that's only limited within your Defender for Endpoint and Cloud App Discovery solutions, right? Let's say if we want to go beyond that, right? Let's say if we want to also correlate our firewall telemetry, or maybe if we want to get the things about sign-in logs, just relating back to the same example, that there is one alert in MCAS, there's one alert in Defender for Endpoint, and there can be a high severity alert. But just to solidify that incident was true positive or false positive, we might need more data to support that, right? And what that data is, that can be a data within Microsoft landscape. For example, sign-in logs and Office activity, and whatever you get in Azure activity and things like that. Then we are provisioning a Microsoft Sentinel instance within Azure. And then once we provision that, we get all the data together. And I'm going to show you one demo wherein there is one built-in intelligent rule available in Sentinel, which is going to correlate everything as a signal and try to create high fidelity rule. And then beyond that, we can also create our own rules for that matter, right? So that's something was the slide part, and I think the next thing would be the demo. So let's quickly jump back to the demo, and let me try to pull up the environment here really quick. So I'd say I hope the Defender portal is visible to everyone.
Yes, Sami.
All right, thank you. So as you can see, the URL is provided what kind of access you have. The URL is security.microsoft.com. That's the unified portal right now. Once you log into that, you go to home, right? And if I go to incidents, that's gonna show up the incidents right up here, right? Depending on, yeah, for example, unfamiliar sign-in properties for the user, and it just showed up right over here as I was talking about. So Defender basically correlates all the alerts from, maybe it is from identity, maybe it is from your cloud apps, maybe it is from Defender for Endpoint, all together, right? And then in Defender, you can also leverage, if I quickly swap to advanced hunting, you can access all the tables what Defender has in the list, and then you can write queries and access the raw data and things like that. But again, that's limited, and the time it stores, it basically keeps the data for a month, and then after that it purges the data. That's the design of the product. Now it also has an option, as I was talking about, apart from onboarding a devices, we can also onboard policies around cloud apps. And for that, I will quickly jump on to the cloud discovery dashboard, and you can see all we need to do is just deploy that, and automatically it shows up a dashboard, what is a security measure, and what are the things, and which are the apps which are basically, even you say like as I was looking at this, right, I just used WhatsApp, and you can see it's picked it up, right? So that means it can pick up the custom apps as well, from MCAS, right? Then what do you do is, once we can also look at the cloud app catalog. That catalog is going to show you like the number of apps it has figured out in your environment, and each app, uh, basically all the Microsoft apps are scored at 10, and each row, each app you have actually, or any user has exactly explored, has a secure score tied to his. uh, the more the better. That's how it works, and mostly because I'm using a Microsoft environment altogether, so you'd see mostly Microsoft apps. But eventually, if you want to onboard a Salesforce and any other connectors and things like that, you can always do that with Defender for Cloud Apps. And then the next part is the policy template. What we would do is, and this is in conjunction to Defender for Endpoint, right? So you can create all these policies. And as I was talking, the way policies work, Defender for Cloud Apps sits as a proxy before your environment, and fundamentally kind of acts on the proxy, and then you can always do whatever you want to apply. And I'll quickly jump on to the policy management, see how many policies we have. So these are the policies, and then I'd say, let me see one I was trying to create, which is a very, very simple one policy, right? So if I try to open that, let's see. So fundamentally, what I did is we can block, as I was talking about SharePoint Online, if it is not equal to hybrid AD joint, and then it's kind of get blocked, and there are other conditions as well. And one thing to remember, the policies can take up to around hours once we put it. It's not that you do it, it starts works right away. So any policy we want to implement, we just need to plan and then deploy it, and eventually it takes effect, right? And then obviously in report and Defender portal, we see everything, whatever is available as a part of report. And let me go to security report just for an example, and these are all built in, so we just deploy or enable the licenses and then you do it. So as you see, the device is non-compliant, and what are the actions required. So this is again a kind of very high level overview of Defender portal. And just as a next step, what I would like to show you, if I go to settings, and as I was talking about, this portal is a combination of all Microsoft products. You can see every thing based on the license you have. So in this case, we have the licenses. So you can see endpoint, you can see, email collaboration, which is Defender for Office as well, identities and cloud apps. So let me quickly jump onto the endpoints. And once we are in endpoints, we can see advanced features. And what I would do is in advanced feature, you see there's an option for Microsoft Defender for Cloud Apps. So it forwards endpoint signals to Defender for Cloud Apps, and that's what I was talking about. Depending on the license availability, you will get this feature available, enabled, and you can also do a web content filtering with the correlation of that. Uh, right? So in that case, what happens is all the alerts in Defender for Endpoint gets forwarded to Cloud App Security, and that also acts as a policy over there. So whatever policy you implement in Defender for Cloud Apps, that's kind of gets correlated with the endpoint alerts, and that's the setting you do, right? Now, once you do all the settings, so let us try to shift our gears from Defender to Sentinel. So all we do is this is the respective Azure subscription tied to the particular tenant. So what we have done is just to start from very beginning, we have installed Sentinel, and I would quickly go to the data connectors. Let me just go to the data connectors, and in this data connector, I would go to, as you see, recently earlier it was named as Microsoft 365 Defender, but I think a week ago it got renamed to Defender XDR. So let me open the page, and what you could do with this, and also it talks about the prerequisites. I think because I have all this, I was able to do that. You can firsthand, you can get all the alerts from Defender to Sentinel alongside the incidents. So that means coming back to the other screen, and if I go to incidents, whatever incidents going to come here, right? We are going to see the same thing flowing here also. And next thing is we can also get the raw data running behind the scenes. So all the device data, all the email data, for example, I'm just enabled all, and the cloud app events data. So whatever we are trying to get the telemetry from all the products basically into Sentinel. And yeah, and this connector, as you say, this started ingesting data, and this also have a list of alerts and things what it can include from a Microsoft product standpoint, right? But this is something I would say, it's already available in Defender. Then what's the point in having it in Sentinel? Is it just a duplicate of data? So the answer would be, I'd like to answer that in like three phases. Number one, you can always get the alerts and then build your automations. Like for example, if you get an alert from Defender and Cloud App, you want to start antivirus scan, you can put an automation to do that, and that's the first thing. Second thing is, once you ingest the data, you have accessibility to the raw data, and then if I may go to the workbooks, right? You can see the plenty of workbooks just to show you what are the data coming in. I will go to the usage workbook, which is really one of the famous workbook available in Sentinel, and quickly switch on to that and go to advanced. And you can see all the data available over here, and the benefit and cloud app events is also coming in, right? So by having all the data, you can really write queries, you can really build visuals and dashboards and things like that, right? Which will correlate and give you more sense to understand the attack was good, attack was bad, or it was really a false positive or user doing that. Just to give you an example, right? So let's try to see a data which is not from Defender, which is coming from totally Office. So I'm gonna go to Office 365 and view the template. And let me select everything over here, and hopefully the data loads faster. Right? As you can see, this is the and this is nothing which we are doing in Sentinel. It is all built in whatever data you're ingesting. And I'm also going to show you the raw data with some small queries if time allows, right? So so now imagine you are getting an alert from MCAS, and then you see that is coming from, let's say, from a policy where it says user has download more than 50 files in a day, right? Then you come to Office activity and see that evidence that yeah, that was real. Or maybe that happened because that user has tried to set up his OneDrive sync and the sync has caused it. So that really makes you faster and efficient, here that why that alert is created. Sentinel gives you a single pane of glass that helps you to not only look at your Defender data, also look at your actual product data, which is Office 365. So that's the use case number one. What I would say, for Microsoft specific products,
Samik,
right?
we have 10 more minutes.
Thank you. Thank you for the reminder. I'll definitely try to finish it within the time. So, yeah. Now, coming back to the next thing, right? We talked about data getting ingested, alert data getting ingested. Now, we have, let me go to analytics. So, that's the heart of the Sentinel system, which helps us to create alerts and incidents. And as you see, this is a fresh new incident and instance of Sentinel. And we have one rule called advanced multi stage detection. And then if I hit edit, then we're going to see a very, very nice thing here. And I'll straight away jump to the configure fusion. So as we talk about products, right, we can talk about all the products, Defender, Cloud Apps, and everything is included, and all the alert of all the severity is included, also the anomalies. And then there is two very important thing here. One is Azure Sentinel scheduled analytic rule and Azure Sentinel NRT analytics rule. What they basically do, so analytic rule is something which we can create within Sentinel by writing our own queries. So what will happen in that case? And once we do that, let's say we got some alerts from MCAS and Defender for Endpoint, and we also have Office activity, and we are going to write a single rule or single query, join all three tables, and then that's going to create an incident. Now this machine learning model, right, this fusion rule model, Microsoft has claims there are 122 scenarios it covers, and they're investing more and more on this to get more of signal based detections. So if there is something coming from cloud apps, there's something coming from different endpoint, and there's also something coming from which is written by yourself or your team. It combines all these things as a signal, and then creates a multi-stage attack detection rule. Now that this case, right, the Azure Sentinel scheduled analytic case, that can be very well coming from your firewall data, that can be very well coming from your Office activity data and things like that. So that's where this is very, very meaningful once we kind of ingest that in Sentinel. And what you're going to see is how to create a new detection rule. And I'll just, or let me go back and try to create from a template. So there are also plenty of templates available here, right? For example, GitHub sign in burst. So we know that there's one alert in MCAS, there's one alert in for example, from Endpoint. We can just add one alert, or maybe we can just enable this rule where it says that cross tenant access setting organized and deleted. So I'm gonna use it because the lack of time. Otherwise, we can definitely create a rule on our own. So we create a rule just to show you, right? And then what happens is I will, and another important thing is you need to get the severity right, and you also need to select the right MITRE techniques and tactics. So as EDA Sentinel works on MITRE techniques. Any alert coming from Defender or MCAS basically picks up picks up the thing that which tactics or techniques it has to be. And when we create our own, we need to make sure that we select the right one, and then only the fusion rule, which I demoed a while ago, acts as and find out a multi-stage attack detection. So let's say there's something coming from initial access, there's something coming from execution from Defender, and there's something coming from persistence, maybe from Cloud App. There's a high possibility that that fusion rule detects all these things are coming from the same thing, depending on if it is coming from the same entity, right? And in the set rule logic, as you can see, this is what echoing the session from Anup. This is called Kusto query language, and that's where you can write your queries. And this is, and I'll click on view results. Obviously, I'm not sure we're going to get any result, but this is what the query looks like. So it is just creating the Azure AD. So fundamentally, it is querying Azure AD audit logs. As you can see, this is not coming from Defender for Cloud Apps or Defender for Endpoint. It is totally from Azure AD audit logs, and it is combining all three things. And you can create your own rule, and then Fusion can be an add-on on top of it, right? So that's how we basically can do things together. And obviously, once we have all these things enabled, right? Another benefit is we can always go to automation, and there are, I believe, okay, let me see if there is a lot of templates available where you can act upon. So you get an alert from a device, you get an alert from different for cloud apps. And then you also written a custom rule which says that look at any user. If he has already a alert from MCAS, he has already alert from different for endpoint, and he has also a brute force attack done, like that's a custom KQL query altogether. If that happens, just go and revoke his sign in for that entity. That's what you can do as a part of automation. And the moment that happens automatically without any user intervention, it gets blocked over there, right? So that's something is also available over within Sentinel. And a little bit of details around how do you set and what are the things to consider from a billable standpoint. Obviously, if you want to have MCAS, or I would say Defender for Cloud Apps and Endpoint, you have to have specific licenses, and those licenses are seat based. That means the number of licenses, number of users you have, or number of users you want to assign to, you can assign the numbers. And if it is below 300, you can go business. If it's above 300, it is like you have to go enterprise. And then irrespective of the number of licenses you have, you're going to have a Sentinel instance created. And Sentinel charges you a little different way, that it is charging you per gigabyte of ingestion data. And once you ingest data, this is another add-on benefit, I would say, that the moment you ingest data in Sentinel, I'll go to workspace settings, and what you could do is you can set the retention. And by default, this is a new instance, so this is a 3 days. We can go till 90 days without any cost, and we can go till 2 years as an interactive retention, wherein Defender only stores the raw data for a month, right? So if you're looking at a longer time SOC environment or security environment, having Sentinel is always an add-on for, and keeping it 90 days for free, right? You can obviously go for 2 years, and you can go little details around, even you can archive that for 7 years in case you have compliance needs. But that's how even you can store the
Samir,
data
we have
long.
3 more minutes.
Sure. So I think this is the last piece I wanted to share and then open up. So let me click on manage table, and you can see you can go till this is the time you can archive the data for. Right. So with that said, I think that's something, just respecting the time. That's all I would like to share a demo. And the good thing about Sentinel is if you have Azure subscription, you can create a Sentinel instance. And because I created it today, for example, right, if I go to news and guides and go to free trial, you can see up to next 31 days, we are eligible to ingest 10 gigabytes of data for free on a daily basis without any charges. That means we can ingest 10 gigabytes every day, and then for next 90 days that data is going to be there. And apart from that, I'll also, the last piece I'd say, go to the workbook. You can also see there are few data sets which never charge at all. So what we mean by that, for example, any alerts and incidents coming from Defender doesn't charge you anything in Sentinel. But yeah, if you want to ingest raw data like device event, cloud at events, they might charge you. And also there are some discounting on licenses and data set like Office activity and Azure activity. Let me look at this one. As you can see, these are the tables which doesn't charge you anything, right? So with that said, I'll just go back to my demo and then give it back to you for any questions. And by the time you have question, I would like to thank you once again for all our sponsors, volunteers and organizers for making this wonderful event happen. Thank you. And in case you have any questions which I couldn't answer, please feel free to reach out throughout the chat. I should be available and we should be able to help it. And or otherwise, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. All right then. So I think over to you, Peramal,
Yeah,
for the next
okay.
session.
Yeah. Uh, Hi, Dan. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.